If you've ever wanted a professional wrestling anime that takes itself seriously enough to develop its characters, use real moves and real rules, but is still wild enough to wrestle on the edge of a boat, then you're in luck. Welcome to Tiger Mask 1969, the final entry before my 1960s decade overview. If you're a fan of obscure retro anime, subscribe for balanced, spoiler-free reviews of anime the world has forgotten. Now, back to the review. My first impression of Tiger Mask was how it felt like a moving manga. It's got all the imperfections of undefined lines and halfway erased joints you'd expect in a sketch, but there's millions of them. They're the remnants of sketching picked up by Toei's Xerox machine as it's copied and printed directly onto blank cells. It's a process I think is fairly unusual to anime. Tiger Mask stands out among animation norms favoring consistency and well-defined outlines. Additionally, the animation is a technical marvel given the context of the late 60s, as its unique art style compensates for its sacrifices in frame detail. Visually speaking, fluid animation is paramount for professional wrestling anime, considering their athletic feats and complex holds. Thankfully, it faithfully represents the wrestling experience by not only replicating these holds, but also emulating the at-home viewing experience. It feels like the ring is actually surrounded by cameramen, altering perspectives or zooming in as someone reaches for a rope break. Regarding the matches, they're intense competitions of strength and endurance where characters strive to remain standing after a barrage of traditional wrestling holds, and also moves so exaggerated it feels like action figures slamming against each other. Have you ever seen a wrestling match that took things so far that you stopped enjoying its lore and athleticism and began feeling sickly concerned for their well-being? Well, that's much of Tiger Mask. There's plenty of matches so hardcore they make old-school ECW look like daycare. You've seen wrestlers body slam each other through tables, but have you ever seen them stab each other with its broken shards of wood? And I know you haven't seen a wrestler get waffle stomped through an elevated ring of wire mesh either. These matches are so brutal that even their sound effects make your hair stand on end. Although gratuitous anime violence has lost most of its appeal to me, I think half of it fits the narrative here. The brutality and rule set create a gradient of characterization, highlighting the differences between face and heel and depicting our protagonist's personal development. The anime follows the struggles of Tiger Mask and his efforts to survive deadly matches while trying to win them with virtue. Although he tries to abide by the rules, it's not for the reasons you might think. You see, when the anime begins, Tiger Mask is an unchained beast, frequently getting disqualified for his dirty moves, like river dancing on his opponent's chest until they foam at the mouth. Naoto Date grew up as an orphan harboring intense hatred and confusion after his orphanage closed down, separating him from his family and landing him on the streets. He eventually began training with the world's most elite faction of murderous wrestlers, risking his life daily with insane training. Although his sacrifices gained him enough power to choke out lions barehanded, he continues to pay the price. Externally, he struggles to make it in the wrestling business as his ruthless tactics are frowned upon by his peers and spectators. However, internally, he contemplates his reputation and his influence on children. He doesn't want to be a bad guy, and his empathy for kids inspires change, but he struggles to maintain composure in desperate situations. After all, half of his techniques are considered illegal, so his abilities are limited. When faced with life or death, his only choice is to unleash the hardcore demon within, brutalizing his opponents and beating himself up internally afterwards. Additionally, his hardships are exacerbated by being hunted by the other Tiger's Den wrestlers for breaking their contract by not returning 50% of his earnings in perpetuity. It's no secret that popular wrestlers make a lot of money, and the same is true here, but his funds are tied up in personal obligations. So, when his mask is off, Naoto uses his wealth to help those in need, primarily orphans. I loved how the plot is divided, balancing wrestling alongside other aspects of Naoto's life, such as his philanthropy and personal relationships. A few examples would be when Naoto buys lunch for random hungry orphans and lies about the price to diminish his good deed. Then, upon realizing the children would return expecting the same low price, he secretly opens a tab to continue the facade. There's also the episode where his leg is badly injured in a match, but he finds himself in the desperate situation of protecting an orphanage from a landslide. Of course, he doesn't only help orphans either, like the time he met the alcoholic doctor who endures the immense stress of aiding those in need for little in return. While there's plenty of similar heartwarming one-off episodes, he spends much of his time with the orphanage run by his childhood friends as he bonds with them and the children they care for. In addition to its visual prowess, Tiger Mask is the first anime of its length to feature a linear narrative with developing characters. Not only does Naoto grow, but the same can be said about some side characters, including his friends, orphans, and a few wrestlers. Ironically, the anime's themes of kindness and generosity originate from the manga's Christ-like depiction of Naoto, as several panels make strong connections between the two. In contrast, the anime takes a more subtle and complex approach. In fact, most of his kindness is anime exclusive, so in my opinion, it's a vast improvement. Additionally, anime Naoto experiences additional hardships that his manga counterpart didn't. In the anime, Naoto struggles with his aspirations to become a stoic role model and play by the rules in the face of death. This leads to much character development through personal realizations, the all-encompassing fire of self-doubt, and his physical training. There's even multi-episode segments where he brews over the creation of a new signature move. If you love the internal conflict in Rurouni Kenshin as he copes with his dark past and murderous potential, Tiger Mask is one of the best anime I've seen to focus on this type of introspection. Although there's much to love about the anime, it's not perfect as it occasionally succumbs to Goon of the Week syndrome. After all, 105 episodes is a lot of content for all his opponents to be dynamic. That being said, you generally know what you're getting yourself into by a wrestler's gimmick because some are so asinine it's painful. Still, these matches are often good benchmarks of various criteria, such as his growing moveset or personal growth into a face. There's also the rare episodes that felt so out of place they could have been in another anime, like when Naoto gets hypnotized and holds his friends up at gunpoint, or the wrestler who turns into a Sasquatch. Its ending is also different from the manga, but I think both are controversial in different ways. I won't go into further detail due to spoilers, but I will say its final match is the most intense battle in the anime, both physically and emotionally. Although I understand their intent with its ending, it's not what I would have chosen for such a long, character-driven anime. As you know, Tiger Mask 1969 isn't the only entry in the franchise, as there's 1981's Tiger Mask Nisei and 2016's Tiger Mask W. Unfortunately, I dropped both because I couldn't appreciate their potential quality while under the shadow of the original anime, which I consider superior. However, I'll probably revisit them in the future. Tiger Mask Nisei is considered a retcon sequel, but I'd say there's a dual continuity since it flippantly spoils the manga's ending in its first episode. So I'd say it's a sequel to the manga, while Tiger Mask W is the true, unnecessary continuation of the 1969 anime. Both subsequent series feature new protagonists donning the legendary Tiger Mask for recognition. Ironically, that's how I felt about both anime, as they felt like generic wrestling shows with a recognizable face. Unfortunately, the character traits that made Naoto so unique and exciting were absent in what I've seen of these anime. Not that they need to follow in his footsteps, but they don't do enough to make me care about them either. I'd also say Nisei is 3 steps closer to the fantasy wrestling in Ultimate Muscle. After all, the protagonist is joined by an actual pet tiger that fights people. I know 1969 wasn't exactly about realism either, but come on. You might be wondering why the original anime has flown under the radar for so long, given the all-encompassing light of the internet and people like me who endlessly dig for hidden gems. The sad truth is that Tiger Mask 1969 is an incomplete translation. I had to watch 73 episodes with an Italian dub and a somewhat inaccurate English subtitle. Although they're far from the worst I've read, it didn't bother me as much as watching the last 32 episodes raw. Overall, I give Tiger Mask 1969 a 7.5 out of 10. Although I loved its presentation, content, and characters, it felt much longer than needed. Its ending could have been better, and much of its violence was gratuitous. It's one of those shows that leave an emotional impact much greater than its score would suggest. As for my recommendations, here are the only other translated anime adapted from Kajiwara's manga. First, the Osamu Dezaki directed Ashita no Joe is probably the second most popular boxing anime ever. Secondly, there's Karate Baka Ichidai from 1973, directed by Tadao Nagahama. In the coming year, I'm eager to discover both anime during my journey through the 1970s, so if you'd like to come along, be sure to subscribe. So if you follow the channel and you want to know where I get the patches on the jacket that I usually wear, I'm cosplaying today, but I actually make these myself, and I've recently opened up an Etsy store to sell some of the ones that I think are better looking. I designed them and I also embroider them myself. This is one that I made inspired by Tiger Mask, and that's up there too. And this is my outside jacket if you want to see. So that's there. If you want to support the channel, there's that link in the video description. Of course, there's also Patreon. Thanks to my patrons, Nia-chan and everybody else you see listed here for supporting the channel. And I'll see you all next time with another anime review.